really weird foreign county kind of thing going on. Okay. We got rid of that.
Pete?
You know what?
I call the meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. And welcome members, first of all, of the management team, Superintendent Everwin, Assistant Superintendent McKenzie, Secretary Treasurer Reed, and Directors of Instruction Hunter and Westhaver. Also welcome members of our partner team, representing the Saanich Teachers Association, Mr. Peterson down in the corner, representing Saanich administrators, Mr. Cal Russell on the screen, representing QP441, Ms. Nola Welch, and representing COPAX, Craig Morton. Glad you could join us, our district PAC. I want to mention too that we have Trustee Silzer online because she's at a distance, and we have regrets from Trustee Holman. I wish to acknowledge that we're meeting this evening on the traditional territories of the Wasanic peoples who have lived, learned, worked, and played on these lands for many, many years before we or our forebears arrived. And that I offer this acknowledgement on our behalf sincerely, respectfully, and in an effort to further the cause of true reconciliation. Moving to the agenda, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Trustee Vanwell, second Trustee Stelk. Are there any late items or proposed revisions? All right, all in favor of adopting the agenda as circulated? Opposed? Motion's carried. Prior to the regular meeting, the board held an in-camera meeting and discussed personnel matters and business affairs. And rising and reporting from that meeting, I wish to advise this meeting that the board passed a motion of appreciation of staff, to and of staff, for a successful audit report and all of the cooperation and work associated therewith. Moving to item 3, adoption of the board meeting minutes of June 15, 2022. Are there any errors or omissions to the minutes of June 15, 2022? Hearing none, I declare that the minutes be adopted as circulated. There is no business arising from the minutes. There are no presentations and delegations this evening. Are there any questions from our partners or the public who may be attending? Hearing none, we'll move on to the report from the chair. And in that regard, I wish to welcome us back to school and the district and board work after the summer break. The break had its challenges, or perhaps the summer had its challenges. It was unseasonably late in starting, and in the province, we experienced some fires and some smoke. But we trust that we all experience some rest and relaxation and a vacation perspective, actually, and so that we can return to our work here this September refreshed and renewed. We're still, in terms of startup, of course, in the district, in process of returning to school, with senior staff and administrators having been hard at it since August. We may not have the difficulties of some of the COVID strictures that we've had in September's past, but the well-planned logistics, of course, nevertheless, are still hard work for everyone involved. The board's thanks is offered to executive staff, to administration, to support staff, to teachers, and to parents for their cooperation, efforts, and support in getting us back to school. I want to specifically welcome Director Westhaver to this first regular public meeting in his capacity as Director of Inclusion and Diversity. Mr. Westhaver, as we all know, is a well-regarded and well-experienced senior administrator in the district, or he was. And that's all gone. That's all gone. We look forward to his continuing his excellent work, enhancing that of former Director Brent. The loss of Queen Elizabeth II after 70 years of rule and a federal and school holiday this Monday bears acknowledgement this evening. In the words of a recent article entitled "The Genius of a Monarchy Embedded in a Democracy," I quote this: "With her death, it's hard not to fear that so much she exemplified, restraint, duty, grace, reticence, persistence, are disappearing from the world. You can make all sorts of solid arguments against a constitutional monarchy, but it has nothing to do with merit and logic and everything to do with authority and mystery. Where men are forbidden to honor a king, in this case a queen, they honor millionaires, athletes, or film stars instead, for spiritual nature will be served. Deny it food and it will gobble poison." I note that the values and characteristics and attributes exemplified by the Queen are many that we seek to instill in our students and in our communities through our public education process. September 30 will mark the second National Day of Reconciliation, and it honors the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. It's the opportunity to reflect deeply, I hope, on the lasting damages to Indigenous peoples and communities originating in some measure from the residential school program, and the immense remaining work to be done to effect reconciliation. This is a challenge we're very alive to in the Saanich District, and we attempt to address. That work will continue under the new board. On September 15, some of us had the privilege to attend the first EACS recognition ceremony. Vice Chair Manuel, Trustee McMurphy, Trustee Silzer, and I attended on behalf of the board, along with Superintendent Everwood, Assistant Superintendent McKenzie, and Director Westhaver, to honor the first graduates of the Education Assistant and Community Support Program, which we provide in conjunction with our partner, Vancouver Island University. There were 12 grads, 7, I understand, of whom have secured employment as EAs in our district. And the superintendent and I each offered congratulatory remarks to them. It was a most happy occasion. It would be a trite but accurate adjective. Whatever their next steps, that program will bring greater wisdom and understanding to all of the graduates with respect to diversity, children's early development, parenting, inclusion, and relationships. And it's a very important, tremendously important, actually, addition to our curriculum. On September 17, last Saturday, I had the privilege of attending the memorial service for Jan Heinrichs at Stelly Secondary School. Jan, a prominent, well-loved performing arts teacher, had a career of over 30 years at the school. It was a wonderful time, a bit more casual. People could circulate and visit, and then there was an hour of various performances and tributes from former students and colleagues. I should mention a very thoughtful perspective was offered by former Assistant Superintendent Mark Fraser. Of course, is a musician in his own right, and had much to do with Ms. Heinrichs in her time. Her passing last February was most unfortunate and premature. We too know that we're facing an election. The province, October 15, is going to an election for local government and boards of education. And in the Saanich District, neither Trustee Stelk nor Trustee Holman are seeking re-election. The balance of us are. And there have been some acclamations. Trustee Silzer, you've been acclaimed, we know, in Sydney. In the South Zone, Trustee Vanwell and Ms. Joyce Vandal have been acclaimed. And in the Central Zone, Ms. Susan Hickman, who intended to be here tonight but couldn't be for personal reasons to observe, and I have been acclaimed. That means that we're facing an election in the South Zone, in the North Zone, in North Saanich, which is currently represented by Trustee Stelk and by Trustee McMurphy. And I will ignore that, Trustee McMurphy. I struggle with my integrity without being challenged at board meetings. Much of what motivates those of us who have sought to return to the board, and I include you in this completely, Trustee Stealth, is a deep commitment to public education, but also the unfinished work that advances that, some of which includes what I would call the routine and usual work of personnel management, finance, and property. Secretary Treasurer Reid, of course, would be lifting his eyebrows at this point when we describe budget development as routine, particularly with some of the issues that we often face. But there's that which takes a lot of time, specifically to the implementation and monitoring and adjustment necessary around our new strategic plan for the next 5 years. Okay. Our continued mandate to improve student performance for all students, and as well particularly to focus our energies on hard work, fostering our relationship with Indigenous communities and their students and their education. So whatever the final composition of the next board, we wish it well in advancing public education in our community and for all our students. Thank you. And we'll turn to Trustee McMurphy. Yes.
Probably get all choked up. I just want to acknowledge my colleague, Percentage. Been great working with you for 4 years. We're going to miss you.
I'm going to miss you guys too.
Thank you, Trustee McMurphy. And Trustee Stelk, on behalf of the board, I'm sure that we'll have another opportunity to emphasize what Trustee McMurphy has just said. You have another meeting, another month, and I'm sure there'll be more said. Right, thank you. We'll turn to the superintendent's report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've said this before, but I have a distinct advantage over the vast majority of staff that I get an opportunity at every board meeting to speak. And one of the highlights is the September board meeting, as it's our new year in education, and it's an opportunity to take a look ahead as to what we have to look forward to, but also a time to celebrate some things. And I'm going to comment on one or two things that the chair also commented on this evening. You'll notice that there are a number of photographs on my report, simply to show some of the additional photos that have been taken that really highlight the depth and breadth of learning opportunities and engagement that we have in Saanich schools that we're extremely proud of. The first thing I wanted to share with the board this evening is a preliminary look at our enrollment projections for this year. It's still early, but you can see the students at Bayside Canoe Club are exceptionally excited about the enrollment numbers that are coming up. We have seen the students in our schools, but we're still balancing numbers and finding out if some students are coming or are just delayed. What we are finding currently is that at our elementary and middle neighborhood schools, we are trending slightly above forecast, somewhere around 60 FTE, which is good news. Before we started in September, Mr. McKenzie came to exec and had asked to add a division both at Brentwood and at Bayside to accommodate the increased enrollment. So we were able to put that in under Mr. McKenzie's guidance before school started. And that's always an advantageous time to add divisions before students actually arrive. It's not always possible, but through his leadership and guidance, we were able to do that and help find homes for all of the children looking for homes. Secondary is always a bit of a beast in September because the vast majority of secondary funding is done on a per course basis, not on a student head count. And the month of September is where students can add and drop courses by meeting with their counselors. So it's a constantly moving target until the end of the month. So we're not too sure what it's going to end up at, but we are anticipating it'll be somewhere very close to forecast. But we'll just have to wait and see when the 1701 is published in the beginning of October, and we get a verification report back a couple of weeks after that. So hopefully by the October board meeting, we'll have some firm numbers to share with the board at that time. Staffing is always a challenge at the beginning of the school year, and I thought I'd do a snapshot. Some of these numbers were shared in committee last week, but for the public meeting, I thought it was important to show the tremendous work that our human resources team does, as well as our school-based administration in posting and filling a wide variety of positions. So this is a snapshot from the end of June until just last week when these numbers were calculated. For the teaching and support staff in our district, there were 289 teacher postings over that time period. Remember, there was a break in the summer as well, too. Close to 300 postings for teaching positions that needed to be posted, interviewed, and filled. That's a tremendous undertaking for the size of our district. We also hired 66 teachers teaching on call. So we have a very strong TOC list right now. As with almost every other school district in the province, we still look for teachers in critical areas such as French immersion and inclusion support, like counseling. Those are 3 areas that are particularly difficult to fill when we continue to interview. In fact, we have 30+ teacher applications that we're continuing to work through right now, and we'll continue to add teachers throughout the year. In terms of support staff postings, there were 115 of those over the summertime. And interestingly, as was indicated by Board Chair Dunford, we hired some EAs this year, 24 in the fall, 7 from our new program that wouldn't have been there if we didn't have EAs in place. That's very exciting news for us. We've also hired clerical positions, bus drivers, trades, and custodians as well amongst those hires. So that's all very good news. September is also a time for good news and for concerns around placement and those types of things. But I thought it was important to share an example of a sentiment expressed by a parent in our community who also happens to be a teacher. This is a great example that I'm going to show you of the culture of care and compassion that we have here in Saanich. How our schools get creative in welcoming students to their buildings. This particular Facebook post comes from Monique Frohler, who is a teacher at Stelly Secondary School. And it is small, so I'll read it to you for those of you who can't read it. It says, "So impressed with Stelly's, this time from a parent's point of view, now already loved it as a teacher. My oldest starts high school next week. We've received multiple emails to prep the grade 9s for next week, which has been fantastic and answers every question. Students have been welcomed in all this week to visit and orient themselves. Student tours and counseling is available. We popped in this morning and got great help from the vice principal and staff. But really, this was the coolest. My daughter got a phone call from a grade 12 student welcoming her and giving her information about next week. What a great way to ease the nervous students. Way to go, Stellies." So just one of the many examples of how our schools bend over backwards to make students feel welcome and engaged in their new learning environments. As was mentioned by Chair Dunford, we have our first graduating class out of the EA and Community Support Program in partnership with Vancouver Island University. The first cohort started in February and finished this past August. There are 8 Vancouver Island courses that were taken along with 2 practicums. Students who completed the program received dual credit, so 40, almost half of their credits toward graduation by taking this program. So they got high school credit and they got a post-secondary certificate after completing. 12 out of the original 15 students actually completed their certificates, and as was pointed out, 7 are now working in Saanich schools. This program is one of the latter programs EIU refers to it as, and we do as well, into other programs in human services, like child and youth care opportunities that they can go into, social work programs, and many students may even choose to go and ladder into a Bachelor of Education. What the board chair didn't have in his presentation were pictures. So I have a few to share with you as well at this time. These are all the schools where the students were placed in the practicum. So Brentwood, Cordova Bay, Deep Cove, Keating, Qualset, Lochside, Prospect Lake, Sydney, Bayside, North Saanich, Claremont, Stellies, all hosted practicums this past school year for these students. And many of them have gone back to those same schools or are now in different schools this fall. Here's a picture of the 12 graduates that completed the program. And only 10 of them were actually able to be there that day. And this is a picture of our new graduates last week at the ceremony at ILC. And I echo the chair's comments. This was truly a happy day. There were smiles all throughout the room. It was a time of celebration, and we look forward to cohort number 2 starting next February. Something else that's new this fall, the board is well aware that we launched our new district website last year to much fanfare. And you will recall that the district website is the dark sandwich green as the background. What we wanted to do was to have harmony with our school websites. The school websites have as their main color an off-white or gray, but all of the accent colors represent the school colors. You can see it looks very similar, the Parkland one, to the district website. It has the same menu items or similar menu items across the top. It has the quick access buttons down the middle. So there's a branding or a theme to the websites. There's the Parkland one. Here's the Qualsett Elementary, again white, but you see the golden color for their accent color, and Royal Oak has a blue accent color. So they are works in progress. We are still in the training mode for our school staffs. Information is being uploaded, and it will become more so and more regular as the year progresses. These were launched in early July, and with school startup this September, we are training a little bit, but we want schools to get their feet underneath them before we move into full training on our website. So something else to be proud of here in Sept. I often don't take the time to highlight a particular individual in my superintendent's reports, but I thought it was important to highlight a particular staff member this month. She has been doing just extraordinary work and often behind the scenes, and I'm talking about Sherilyn. And I think it's important to acknowledge her publicly here. She is our program coordinator in Indigenous education, and she is truly an inspiration, not only in the Indigenous education department, but throughout the district. She is someone who collaborates with staffs all around the district. She's out in schools all of the time. She helps build capacity amongst other teachers and support staff, and even within the Indigenous education department. And yes, even your superintendent has learned a few things from Sherilyn over her time in the department. She has been a collector of the resources that are found on our district website, and she has put kits together, and she goes out and demonstrates into our schools. She is truly a dedicated team player with an outstanding sense of humor. She is truly a gem and somebody that we should be very proud of in this district. Here's an example. This is from the district webpage and the district Indigenous Education Resources page. You probably can't read the tabs across the top. Sherilyn is the keeper of all of this. So across the top, it says the Indigenous Education Bulletin that Sherilyn puts out every month. A learning series schedule for Indigenous education and integration of resources. Online resources that are available, the Sandwich Moons program, the Wasanich Skier, Sanchothan language, and First Peoples principles of learning. Sherilyn manages it all. Here's an example. This was the Indigenous Education Monthly Bulletin for this past month. She talks about the Dog Salmon Return to Earth resource and the audio file that goes along with it in the Sandwich Moons website. She talks about the Sanchothan Word of the Month, Every Child is Sacred, Orange Shirt Day resources that are available to teachers and others. She recommends resources such as the Salish Weave collection, kindergarten resources, grade 3 to 4 resources, middle school resources, grade 9 to 12 resources, and 3 books of recommended reading and links to them on the website, and a staff recommendation on a podcast that they might want to watch. And it goes on. She talks about the dates to remember in the community opportunities, what September 30th is, and links to various resources there, Voices in Circle, and an October 1st opportunity for an Indigenous Pollinator Stone series. This is the September bulletin. There'll be one next month, there'll be one the month after. This goes out to all staff in the district. She is truly a gem and someone worth celebrating and acknowledging on as regular basis as you can find. And she didn't know I was doing this, but I can tell her. Sticking with the Indigenous theme, we have a very exciting day planned for Friday on the non-instructional day, bringing reconciliation into practice. We have two exciting speakers coming. One talking about climbing the mountain, Indigenous curriculum, missing curriculum, truth and reconciliation in schooling by Dr. Sinclair. He's a professor of Native Studies from the University of Manitoba, and he is part of the Anishinaabe First Nation, and he is a very well-known speaker and is zooming in with us, I believe, that day. Also, a BC treasure, Joe Crona, is speaking on building a stronger education system, intersections between Indigenous education and anti-racism. She is a consultant presently on Indigenous education and anti-racism, and comes from Kittu First Nation. She is someone who we're hearing from. I've had the pleasure of listening to Joe on a number of occasions. So a big thanks to the Indigenous Education Department for coordinating this, to Director Hunter for her leadership in that regard as well too. I encourage trustees and others, if you have the opportunity to come out on Friday to Claremont Secondary School, to do so. This is a great example of the sense of inclusion and importance this district puts on Indigenous education for all. And so I encourage you, if you have the time, to come out to Claremont and get there early, because it'll be rush seating in the parking lot. That concludes my report this evening, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent on this report? Thank you, Superintendent. We'll move along. There are no school successes to report this month because school was in session last month. We'll do that next month. On to committee reports, and first the Education Directions Committee with Committee Chair McMurphy.
Thank you, Chair. We had a presentation on the strategic plan and the framework for enhancing student learning. An excellent overview of where we're going and how we're going to get there. The item for recommendation I will move with a slight change in wording, that the Board of Education approve the framework for enhancing student learning report for submission to the Ministry of Education in September 2022.
Words for submission are the difference.
Approve the framework for submission, yes.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Trustee Stout, Trustee McMurphy? Is there any discussion, debate, comment, question on the motion? Question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
That's it.
That completes your report. Thank you. Moving then to Finance, Facilities, and Technology with Trustee Van.
Yes. A list of motions to go through. So I'll start off with the items discussed, and the first, or the only one we had was the naming of the Saanich Schools Child Care Center, which is formerly known as the White Road project. And so things are moving forward, and we're looking to name the school, and we'll be putting together, staff will be putting together a committee, which will have representatives from within the school and facilities, principal, student services, along with the STA and QP, COPAX, and representative from the Saanich School Board. So that will be coming soon. And then we will move to the recommendations, and we have first the 2022-23 financial statements. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van, will move that the board approve the internal restriction of accumulated operating surplus as presented in Note 12 in the 2021-22 financial statements.
Second, Trustee McMurphy. Trustee Van.
And this is just moving through the accumulated surplus to help balance the budget.
Anything further on this, Trustee? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay, so second motion. The committee recommends, and I, trustee Now, will move that the board approve transfer of $109,982 from accumulated operating surplus to local capital as presented in Schedule 1 in the 2021-22 financial statements.
Trustee McMurphy seconds. Trustee Manuel.
And this is transfer of funds from the operating fund to the local capital funds that will help balance our budget.
Comment, trustees? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay, motion number 3. The committee recommends, and I, trustee Now, will move that the board approve the 2021-22 financial statements.
Trustee McMurphy, you second? Trustee Manuel.
Self-explanatory, yes.
Anything further, trustees? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So moving on, we have the company, business company financial statements. The committee recommends, and I, trustee Van, will move that the board approve the financial statements of the school district number 63 business company, Saanich International Distributed Learning Services, Inc., and Saanich International Student Recruiting Services, Inc.
Trustee McMurphy, seconds.
This is the end to the business company. These are just financial statements that need to be sent in.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
The Student and Family Affordability Fund. The committee recommends, and I, trustee Van, will move that the board approve the revised allocation method and spending parameters for the Student and Family Affordability Fund.
Second. Trustee McMurphy. Trustee Manuel.
Thanks. So Saanich School District was, our portion of the pie was $737,162. And it will be distributed among all of our schools to allow the administrators in those schools to distribute these funds accordingly. We feel the best people that know our schools is administrators and staff there.
Trustee McMurphy.
Thanks, Chair. Through you to I'm not sure who, but I gather this was a topic of some discussion at COPAC's meeting recently, and I'm wondering if the discussion there, the feedback has resulted in any suggestion for change in what's proposed here.
Mr. Lee.
Through the chair, there was quite a bit of discussion at the committee meeting as well, Finance, Facilities and Technology Committee meeting last Tuesday, and some of the feedback that I took back from that committee meeting was reflected in revising the allocations, and in particular what I had changed is previously preliminary version of the allocation. I had used census data on incidence of low income by catchment area as a means of differentiating some of the allocations, and the observation at the committee meeting was that that statistic didn't necessarily line up in all cases with our understanding of the socioeconomic factors facing our schools. And so I found a different indicator, which is a composite indicator of, I believe, four different census data points. And that information is included in the revised briefing note, and I use that instead to differentiate the allocations. And looking at those differentiations, they really did make a lot more sense in terms of our understanding of challenges facing our schools. At the COPAX meeting, there was, the discussion was more on use of the funds. There was a comment or question as to whether the differentiation could be based on the composite indicator of socioeconomic need, if the differentiation could be more nuanced. I believe that the differentiation, the indicator, we shouldn't be placing too much weight on the indicator. I think the indicator is helpful in identifying which schools are of greater need, but I don't think the relationship between the indicator and need is necessarily linear. And so that's why I've recommended that we don't differentiate too much based on the indicator, but differentiate in some cases an increase of 10%, in other cases an increase of 20% relative to other schools.
The numbers to me look more reflective of what I understand our communities to be, sort of not based on anything scientific, just knowledge of the district, and it just seems to reflect that reality. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the modifications. Thank you. My question was, I guess the latest input from COPAX that we just got today would be reflected in what you're suggesting in terms of what happens at the school level rather than decisions that we make here.
Yeah, that's right. Our overall approach in school and allocating these funds is a recognition that the schools are really best positioned to determine what their communities need on the board office.
And sorry, I did ask a couple of questions when we originally discussed this, and one was the issue of this money coming late, and how can we help the people who have already spent the money that they can ill afford to spend on things like course fees and the school startup, whatnot, because that part of the grant was supposed to address those things. And the other thing was, would we be able to use the money in any way to eliminate or reduce course fees on a widespread basis for everybody, not just people who have need in some description or another?
Yeah, good questions. With respect to fees that have already been incurred, the parameters that we're providing to schools reflects that we don't have the capacity in our finance department to issue thousands of checks. You remind me that question actually did come up at the COPAX meeting, and one of the attendees at the COPAX meeting offered the suggestion of perhaps individual PACs could process refunds, and we said that yeah, we would be open to doing that if it worked for individual PACs. I'm sorry, I posed the second
course fees.
Yeah, course fees. Yeah, so the stated intention of the funding is to defray costs to parents, and also that how we make those decisions are reflective of existing hardship policies. And so we don't necessarily think that it would be appropriate to reduce fees for everybody, but that it would be the decisions at a local level, at the school level, would be guided by an assessment of need and an assessment of hardship.
Still those people in your position of
Asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having said that, it is a lot of money. The example I provided at COPAX, one of our schools, I think the example I had was Qualsit. Their entire service supply operating budget for the entire year is $100,000, and they're receiving about $30,000 just for this, for meals and to freight costs to parents. So it is a lot of money, and the use of the funds in a way that avoids avoids stigma. So meal programs for all kids, students, and perhaps defraying costs for certain programs for all students where it's appropriate is definitely something that we're open to. And we're looking forward to hearing back from from our schools as to what they think is the best use of the money. And we're already receiving lots of questions, and there's a lot of discussion happening already.
And that's my last question, which is, are we required to report to the Ministry of Education how this money?
Yes, we are.
And the board will obviously get a report then as to, of the schools as to how the monies were used and what happened and how families and students benefited, I hope.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustee Stout.
Yeah, thank you. This is a wonderful opportunity. Wish it wasn't just one time. My question is, so there's a holdback of almost $48,000. And I'm just interested to know, I appreciate. Oh, it's 44. Sorry, 44. I'm interested just to know the disbursement. Obviously, there isn't a schedule, but how it will be dispersed over the next 8 months or the next 6 months, or do you have an idea of how this is going to be distributed amongst the schools?
I guess the honest answer is no, and that's why we're holding back some of that money. Part of the reason for the holdback is the allocations to schools is based on enrollment, and so where actual enrollment has come in higher than forecast, we will increase allocations out to those schools, and we're not going to take back money if the school missed their forecast, so that will be a portion of a holdback. But we also wanted to hold back some funds, recognizing that we are rolling this out very quickly. Like the announcement of this was August 29th, so like three weeks ago, and so we have done our best, and I feel pretty comfortable that the allocations we're making out to schools are reasonable. But I do expect that we will learn more as the discussions continue at the school level, and wanted to have some flexibility at the district office to be able to respond to what we learn as those consultations unfold. But our intention is not to hold on to the money for a very long period of time. We are concerned that we will be able to use all of this money in 1 year, and so included in the directions to schools is that if they have not used the money by April 30th, we will be reallocating it throughout the district to ensure that it is being used.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stout. Are there further questions or comments on the matter? Then I'll put the question. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Trustee Van Wel.
I have one more motion. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Mallon, move that the 2023-24 5-year capital plan submission be amended to include replacement of the heating plant at Stelly Secondary School.
Second, Trustee.
I'm sorry, what years did you say?
23,
23-24.
Seconding, Trustee.
If I'm just looking at my agenda, which says 22, 23.
Mine says 23, 24.
One of the websites says 2023.
Which we want it to be 23, 24.
Oh no, actually we want it to be 22, 23. It is 22, 23, sorry.
All right.
Oh,
Good catch.
oh, wait a second.
What does it say in the brief?
Well, it says two different ones in the briefing note now that I'm looking at it. The subject is the revision, but in the staff recommendation, it says 23-24.
Actually, you know what, it is 23-24.
It's wrong,
Yeah, it
yeah.
is
It is
23-24.
23-24, okay. So, all right.
So the motion is clear and
Motion is
correct.
clear and correct, yeah.
We still need a second. Trustee Silser, thank you. Trustee Van Wel.
All right, so the facilities has an opportunity to, and has applied for some funding to help with the replacement of the Stelly's heating system. And that the the balance of it will go on 5-year capital plan submission. It'll only go ahead if the funding from the government is approved. And so that's why it's on, it's going to go there. That's why Director Lawson would like to change the 5-year capital plan submission.
And if it isn't approved,
Everything else will still continue on as is, yeah.
is there further discussion on the motion, trustees? Question then, all in favor, please signify. Opposed, motion is carried.
Okay, and then we have just future agenda items that coming in October, so the financial enrollment and funding and the energy plan presentation. That is my report.
Thank you, trustee Van Lock. Policy then with committee chair Stella, please.
Thank you. Yes, so we had discussed there was a review of board motions, whether any action needed to be taken, whether there wasn't anything. And then policy 21 was discussed, which was the bus and van transportation policy. And there'd been a motion from June that the review of this policy, considering, among other issues, walk limits, communication, and environmental sustainability. So the policy says bus and van transportation, but it's really just sort of transportation, whether you walk, ride your bike, however you get to school. And that the review be discussed with co-pacs. So we discussed that, and there was a consensus among the committee that this be something that stay at the top of mind. And I'd like to move that the superintendent be requested to provide the review of policy 21, the bus and van transportation policy, to the October committee meeting. Just to get the ball rolling with respect to this issue.
Is there a second for that? Trustee McMurphy?
Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have added that last bit. It was a bit premature. So the idea behind this is just to, we may not have all the information that we need, and I appreciate the staff is really busy in September, but it's to keep the conversation going, to have co-pacs at the table and be able to provide input. This is a matter that came up early in the year with the parent presentation from Deep Cove and sort of trundled along and was again sort of front and center in June. And I think just with the election and the changeover and everything, it would be good to start talking about it and start thinking about it and provide some direction for input and resources, that kind of thing.
Trustee McMurphy?
I should know the answer to this question. The review of the transportation policy we discussed with co-pacs, is that review, discussion of that review does that happen before the review comes to the October committee meeting, or does it come to the committee meeting first and then to co-pacs for the discussion?
Sorry, Chair, that was my understanding, that we would have something on the table that we could say, hey, what do you think of this? And then co-pacs could comment on it.
Committee, then to co-pacs, then back to.
That was my understanding.
Okay, thanks.
So just so I'm clear, Trustee Stella, the motion you've just made, which has been seconded and under consideration, is not a committee recommendation. It comes from you personally. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Superintendent, do you have anything to say with respect to this?
No, yes, I do, but my only comment is that it would certainly be a preliminary report. It would not be any recommendation from staff at that time in terms of potential change to the policy. The review of even things such as bus routes or walk limits will take a tremendous amount of time and costing. So it would be more of a general information report as to where we are in the process. Back to the October.
Yeah, and perhaps how, what kind of process might be used to review walk limits, that kind of thing. That would be useful for the committee to look at. Would you think so, Chair?
Sorry, is someone calling for me?
No, I'm talking to this chair.
Oh, this chair.
This chair of the committee, I'm saying.
While this chair considers the question,
Okay.
Mr. Reid has something to offer.
Yeah, so the direction is from last year is really to look, review the policy quite broadly. And what we're doing now is we're reviewing policies and procedures in other school districts. We've been looking at neighboring districts, and our manager of transportation has surveyed districts more broadly across the province, and so we're compiling that information. We already have some interesting observations about how things are done differently in other districts, and so what we're looking for is some feedback on the direction the board wants to go that will lead us to a terms of reference that will allow us to conduct a review with a little bit more focus, because as Superintendent Everyone said, doing scenario analysis for a lot of possibilities for transportation routes is almost impossible because of the amount of work, like changing the walk limit from 4 kilometers to 3 kilometers and then recasting what that means throughout the whole district. That one change is a tremendous amount of work. And so we're trying to narrow the focus, hoping to narrow the focus of working. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, I think that was certainly my motivation behind the motion, is to provide, to put something on the table, to have some information, have a discussion, understanding that, we need many more discussions and input from parents and from the SCA and any other partner groups, that are invested in this. And it might be as simple as doing the walk lessons or not. What is the topography in different areas, and understanding that the bus routes are complicated, they're interconnected, and it's going to take a lot of time to sort of think about it, get the information, share the information, and then make some decisions. That was the thinking behind it. So it was just a general discussion, not to lose track of this. Get started on it.
All right, thank you. Trustee Stout, could you repeat your motion if you have you written it up? Could you repeat it?
That the superintendent be requested to provide the review, change it to the review of the policy 21 bus and van transportation to the October committee meeting. I think with an understanding that it's a general introduction.
Thank you. Did I see your hand, Trustee?
Yeah, I'm just going outside the rules here and just hoping that Colfax is listening to the discussion and hoping that they might be thinking about this review of the transportation policy as well, and considering what kind of thing we might be prepared to offer to our review.
I know they're.
At the end of the meeting, you can.
Okay. I think that was an invitation, Mr. Morton. Appreciate you're obviously interested in it. Thank you then. Seeing no further hands on the question, I'll put the question. All in favor of Trustee Stout's motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And Trustee Stout, we have some committee recommendations.
Right, I do. Okay, so there are 2 items for recommendation. One is policy 1, which is foundational statements. There was a lot of work done here to make it consistent with the new strategic plan, with the themes and also just the Indigenous sort of aligning with truth and reconciliation, calls to action, shared responsibility, and strengthen connections between Indigenous peoples and the district schools. So that's in the first one. And then that's the first motion. So as the required notice of motion is being provided on May 18th, 2022, I, Trustee Stout, move that revisions to policy 1, we're missing the 2, to policy 1 foundational statements be approved.
Second. Is there a second? Trustee McMurphy, thank you. Anything further, Trustee Stout?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's been floating around for quite a long time now, so if you haven't had a chance to look at it.
Far more than 60 days.
Yes.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And the next one is board operations. So this was just more of a placement of the logo and legal name. To move it from the foundational statements because it didn't sort of fit comfortably there to board operations. So I move, as a required notice of motion has been provided. On May 18th, 2022, I, Trustee Stout, move that revisions, and again adding number 2 to policy 9, board operations be approved.
Second by Trustee Murphy. Trustee Murphy?
No, I just have a question. It says, the motion says that the revisions to policy 9 be approved. And on item number 10 in policy 9 is the trustee remuneration effective 2018. We don't need a board motion to bring that up to date. I'm assuming, can it just be automatically changed to reflect reality rather than 2018?
Who wants to tackle that?
That's kind of how it's been done. It's we haven't been updating it year over year, but I don't see a problem with that if the board directs us to simply update it to what it is, based on the policy.
It's kind of a lie right now.
Well, it's true that that's what it was in 2018.
That's
Technically true.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Is this the hill to die on, Trustee?
No, I'm just saying if it could be done automatically rather than, effective 2022 without it having to be, notice of motion and going through all that stuff. Can it just, like we change the date on something, can we just change the reality, the facts?
Superintendent has an answer for it.
No, I had a comment. I'm not sure it's going to be an answer.
Do your best.
I'll do my best. I remember when we were discussing this policy and the policy review, there was a comment made, I believe I made it, but it might be made by somebody else. A policy should stand the test of time and that these numbers probably shouldn't be put in here, but the argument was made for increased transparency so that people know what trustees are paid. They want, the board voted to have these numbers put in, but it was, policy by its nature is meant to go through a formal review process and a notice of motion and out to the public for consideration. So the board would be making an exception to their own policy on how to revise policies if that was to be the case.
I'm prepared to be an outlier, outrider, whatever. I just think the policy should be accurate and it's not accurate. And it wasn't, I don't get it. We change the date on things without having a notice of motion and moving, 3 months consideration, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't understand why this is, it's just, it's unfair and it's unreal and it's inaccurate. If anybody looks up our policies to what trustee remuneration is, it's not there.
Trustee Stilzer? What do you have?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, at committee, there were other matters under policy 9 that we discussed and decided we would wait until the formal review of the entire policy, which is one of the future agenda items. And with respect to this particular notice of motion, I believe it had to do with the district logo and nothing else, really. These are 2 companion motions about the logo. And everything else, there's lots about the board operations policy that we need to review. So I would prefer to just continue with adopting this, dealing with this motion alone at this point.
Is there anything further to be said? Then And I'll put the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Trustee Stout?
Yeah, so the last was an item for information. It had to do with animal dissection, which I'm sure you remember from high school biology. And just making it clear that there's student choice to participate or not, and that can be done in advance, so the student isn't put on the spot about that. So that is that, and then for future agenda items, of course, the transportation and diversity and inclusion coming up, amongst other things. Thank you, that ends my report.
Thank you. And the section issues resolved by way of administrators.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 13, trustees, is reports from trustee representatives. Are there any? All right, thank you. Moving to item 14, correspondence. There are 4 pieces. One, letter from the Sandwich Teachers Association. A second letter from Minister of Labor. Third, one from Olivia Angela-Jarrett. And fourth, a letter from Mr. Roberts of Copac. Any discussion with respect to any of these pieces of correspondence? Trustee Stout.
I just have a question about the one from Olivia and Angela. I wasn't clear to me what capacity she was writing in, or do we have that information?
Nothing other than the correspondence itself. It wasn't clear to me whether she was representing an organization or was writing on her own behalf. She clearly is investigating $10 daycare proposal, wherever that would come from. Anything further, trustees? Thank you. Then we'll move on to the second question period, opportunity for partners and guests if you have any questions. Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, I have a question for you, the superintendent. I appreciate that you brought up the school websites. I just came back from a rep assembly where I met with staff reps from the school district, and we actually spent a fair amount of time discussing the website. Was there any consultation that was done with partner groups in regards to the changes to the website?
So, through the chair, the websites were meant to be designed along the line of the district website, and input was sought from schools and the people that manage their websites. But it's an evolving process, and if there are suggestions that people would like to have, we're more than welcome to receive.
Any other questions, friends? Great.
Just wanted to make a comment regarding the transportation. Copac is interested in providing some input into that. I know there has been a lot of conversations at our meetings around safe bicycle routes through downtown of Brentwood to get to from, like, say, Keating over to Bayside. Because it's difficult for some of the students to travel around major routes of the roads, trying to get there safely. So that is some of the parent consideration, is safe transportation routes for people walking or taking bicycles between some of the schools.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Mr. McEwen, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to the websites as well. My understanding of the websites, the school websites, is that the schools don't actually have control over it, and that in order to make any changes, that they all have to go through a help desk request, and that they're all sort of run out of the board office. I find that to be inefficient. I wondered if there's any sort of comment on that.
Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. That's actually factually not accurate. The websites were launched in early July, and the training was scheduled for the end of August, beginning of September. And then we had a number of unfortunate circumstances that resulted in illnesses, people moving from jobs, a shortage of staff in the IT department. It was a perfect storm. Schools, the whole goal of the renewal of the school websites is to provide increased access to school staff to make and update changes to their websites. Part of the challenge right now is a technical glitch around access for some things that the IT department is working on. Our main designer for the communication system within the websites had been pulled off of the website design to deal with a staff shortage at another site. And that person has now fallen ill as well. And so, as I said, it's just been a perfect storm of unfortunate realities. But as schools need information uploaded, if they are unable to do so, they can certainly put in a work order through the IT department who will help them in that regard at this time. But the short, medium, and long-term goals for the website is to provide schools with as much autonomy to upload and update information as they see fit.
Okay, thank you. Chair, can I have a follow-up comment?
Certainly.
Thank you. Since you were looking for advice, it was very difficult to get onto this meeting. Just finding a link, much less that the link didn't work, it would be beneficial if the link was available right where it says board meetings, rather than having to click on the agenda or click on the events page to find that. And the board information meeting, I believe Monica Braniff has left the district, so it'd be good to update that too.
Thank you very much. We certainly have endeavored to make the link as accessible as possible, but we'll take another look at that and see if there's another alternative. The link can't be a consistent one because it changes every month as a new Teams meeting is created, but we'll take a look and see what's possible there, and we'll certainly take a look to see where Ms. Braniff's name is and update that for sure.
Yeah, and thank you for sending me the link. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. Let's move on to item 16, other businesses submitted, and that addresses the approval of board annual plan and the new trustee or trustee orientation program. Secretary Treasurer Reid, would you introduce this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Both of these items are in the board's annual work plan. The work plan includes that the work plan will be approved by the board this month. And it also includes that in an election year, the board will approve an orientation plan for the trustees following the election. So attached to the briefing note is the proposed annual work plan for 22-23. I realized that I did not include the tracked changes version, so I'm going to put it up on the screen. I'm going to share it on the screen and just highlight where all of the changes occur quickly. There's some changes which are minor and some which I want to draw trustees' attention to. So this here in an election year, approved orientation program for trustees following board elections. This was added. Previously it said it was just approved orientation program for trustees following board elections. And so we just added for clarity following that is in an election. So this here is an addition. So the previous work plan said appoint or reappoint the external auditor. As you know, the Auditor General's Office has been appointed by the Public Accounts Committee of the Legislature. And so in this case, there is no appointment for the board to make. And so we've added the word if applicable. And then the next change this here in the previous work plan was actually in October, which doesn't work because the AGM that swears in the next board is the first Monday in November. So this, in the previous plan was in October, and we moved it to November, so that it follows the AGM. And the other change is the committee meetings. In the previous plan were in December. They moved up to November because committee day, just the way the schedule worked out this year, committee day is in, for the December board meeting, the committee day is actually in November. So that is a change. So this commenced development of the advocacy plan. So what was in the previous board annual work plan was approve the advocacy plan. The boards decided to kind of move this work to follow the election. That is work of the new board. And just logistically, the board's not going to be in a position the second meeting after being, the second business meeting after being sworn in to be approving an advocacy plan. So we've changed this to commence development of advocacy plan. And then another change is in January, we previously had review progress on the strategic planning results. And this has been moved from January to ongoing, which I'll show you when we get that. So the rest of the changes are in the ongoing section. So one very minor change is this used to be two separate items: attend school functions and attend district functions. We've just combined them. Review progress on the strategic plan is ongoing, and it's been removed from January, and it just reflects that our intention, while the board work plan includes a specific date for approval of the vessel document, that reviewing progress and reporting progress on the strategic plan is going to be throughout the year through various direction meetings, primarily in other committee meetings and in other ways, but it's not going to be simply in January. So those are all the changes relative to last year's work plan.
Thank you. The suggestion is that a motion be made that the board approve the draft 2022-23 work plan as presented. Trustee Scott, can you move that? Or you have a question?
I have a comment.
Okay, well, before we get to the motion, if there's some discussion, we'll start with you.
So can I just be clear, you're talking about doing two different steps, the
Yes.
work plan and then the orientation? We're just doing the work.
Yes.
We're just doing the work plan to start with.
Yes.
My comment is with respect to the orientation.
Okay. I think it's for clarity, we should probably address them in two different motions. Trustee Stubb. So Trustee McMurphy.
I had a question about the ongoing, the attend school and district functions as invited. I kind of get the notion of as invited, but it also sounds like we, as trustees, cannot take initiatives, and I'm troubled by that. I would feel I realize it's sensitive. I mean, we don't want trustees storming the schools and saying, hi, here I am, tracking me. But by the same token, I feel that it's my responsibility to stay in touch where I can, if I can, and not wait for an invitation. So I'm in trouble by that. As only attending if invited, because that's what it says to me.
What are those words? Are those new?
No. In the previous plan, it was attend school functions as invited, and and attend district functions as invited.
And
So
then you
it's just
can invited too. But if you have invited trustee Murphy, as you consider.
Yeah,
Understand. Do you want to suggest anything
I
about
would
that?
like to delete those two words in the brackets.
So you'll,
Do you want me to, I mean,
let's,
I will move that the motion be amended to delete the phrase as invited in the ongoing section.
I think we need a motion to adopt the plan
Oh,
first.
sorry, we don't have that.
We don't quite have that,
Okay,
and then we can do the amendments if there
Okay,
are.
I will move it with those words out, how's that?
All right. Is there a seconder? Trustee Manuel? Anybody want to say anything about that motion with the words as invited to the Trustee Silzer, is that you? Yes.
It's me. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I've got a number of things that I think are missing. So, Chair, how do you want to proceed? Like, there are probably about 3 other amendments that I would propose. So,
Well, let's have them then one at a time.
okay. Well, in the past 4, okay, I'll go by month because all my comments have to do with a couple of months. And they're suggested because in the last 4 years, this has been my experience, mostly as the BCPC rep for the board. So under October, where it says represent board at BCPC symposium, I didn't really, if that's the case, if I'm supposed to be doing that, I haven't done it for the last 4 years. And does that mean the BCPC rep? So should this be there at all? Because I think if I was supposed to be there, I would have been told.
So sorry, Trustee Silzer, could you give us your amendment and then we can debate
Yeah,
it?
delete the first line of regular board meeting agenda items.
So delete represent board at BCPC symposium.
Yeah.
All right, is there a seconder for that? Trustee Van Wel. All right, Trustee Silzer, if you could give us your rationale, please.
Well, I think you just did.
Yes, you did, but do you have anything, you've never gone, you don't think this is part of the job?
Well, of the BCPC rep, it seems when I've looked at the materials, they all look very operational. Now, perhaps the superintendent could tell me I should have been going. Trustees are invited to go, but it's never seemed to me that it was directly, well, superintendent, is that your impression of the symposium?
Sorry. I'm sorry, Trustee Sulzer. Chair Dunford was listening to me, so I didn't hear your comments.
Okay, so I am asking whether the BCPC symposium is more relevant to the superintendent and secretary treasurer than it is to trustees, and whether or not this should be a requirement or a trustee obligation.
The symposium, thank you to the chair, the symposium is typically around HR-related issues. So certainly of interest to trustees, but certainly very applicable to senior staff, including the HR director, assistant superintendent, myself. So it is regularly attended to by staff and irregularly attended to, if at all, by trustees. But certainly trustees could attend if they wanted to. I'm not sure if that helps at all.
Well, in a sense it does, because should it be part of the work plan? I'm saying it doesn't need to be part of the work plan.
Okay, thank you. Let's hold anything further and go to Trustee Stell and then Trustee McMurphy.
Well, I'm just, I guess I question whether you go or not is up to the trustee representative. Does it matter whether it's in or out? I guess that's my point. If somebody's interested and wants to attend, they can. And if they don't, and there's no obligation, because I have the feeling, Trustee Zeltzer, that you feel because it's in there, it's an obligation. And
well, it's a plan. Yeah, I do feel that. If this is our work plan and this is one item of work, then I should go if I'm the BCPC rep.
And I guess I have a different perspective. I think just because it's in the plan doesn't mean we need to do it. That would be, so that would be my perspective.
Thank you. And Trustee McMurphy?
Well, in the past, more than one person attended the BCPC symposium. So it wasn't necessarily the representative, and then sometimes people didn't go. So I think it's there as a general statement of commitment rather than an expectation that the BCPC rep will be there, will be the only person there. I think there's a broader interpretation that has applied in the past. So I think we're okay to leave it in without feeling that there's some kind of onus on the BCPC rep to be it and only it.
All right, is there anything further on this proposed amendment? Trustee Silzer again?
I withdraw it. I see the light. I understand the reasoning.
Does that suit you, Trustee Manuel, as a seconder? All right, no one's objecting to withdrawal? All right, thank you. What was your second one, Trustee Silzer?
My second one was a question about, and it's not necessarily an amendment, but this review student learning, capital S, capital L.
Where is that,
What does
please?
refer? That's under October. It's the 5th bullet.
All right, thank you. And your amendment is what?
No, it's a question of clarification. What is it? Because
Thank
if
you.
it's
Superintendent, can you help us with that?
I don't think I can, actually. I see it. I think it should probably be struck, would be my suggestion, because we were doing student learning every month in that direction. So I'm not sure it seems like it might be a partial phrase that was chopped by for some reason, unless maybe the Secretary Treasurer has some wisdom that I don't.
No, I agree. I think it can be deleted, especially since reviewing strategic plan results is an ongoing. And that would fall into that category.
Agreed.
All right, is there any objection to deleting that? It's done.
I mean, we don't have to increase our stipends.
You're 1 for 1, Trustee Silzer. Let's see if we can break the tie.
what I could not hear what.
I'm sorry. The board has agreed to delete the reference to review student learning in October.
Okay.
And I was making a sarcastic comment that you've lost one and you've won one, and now you get your third opportunity.
Okay. The third is to move under October committee and events. So far, I don't think in the last 4 years anyway, the BCSTA Academy has not happened in October. It's happened at the end of November or early December. So I would propose amending the plan by moving Attend BCSTA Academy to November.
All right.
December or December.
It's December this year, Trustee Silzer, and
Yeah.
I think it's usually December.
It is.
That's what.
Okay, well, move it to December then, but
I did.
take it out of October.
All right, trustees, is there any objection to moving the reference to attending the BCSTA Academy from October to December each year? Hearing none, that is done.
Thank you.
Good going, Trustee Sanders. And that's something to that.
I'm on a roll now.
Just before you, Trustee Seltzer, just before you go on, Trustee Manuel has something relating to the Academy connection.
I would also suggest that we move the representative board at the BCSTA to French Council meeting because it happens during the academy as well.
Well, let's come back to you
Okay,
after
fair
we
enough.
deal with the rest of Nola's stuff.
Okay.
Trustee Seltzer, do you have other points?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Under November, the third bullet, election of chair, vice chair. We have always, at least in the last 4 years, also elected the BCSTA representative and the BCPC representative. So I would propose to amend this by adding after chair, vice chair, the BCSTA representative and the BCPC representative.
And that's all true. Is there any objection, trustees? It's agreed, trustee Silzer.
Thank you, and I just have one more, and that's in January. After, I guess it's a parallel bullet to the first one, and it would be with respect to the BCPC. So provide direction through our board representative to BCPC AGM regarding policy matters, regarding provincial policy matters. Because the BCPC AGM has been always at the end of January, and each year I ask the board to give direction on the board's position on certain matters.
Yes, it is, and yes, you do. Thank you. So trustees, is there any objection to adding the reference to the BCPC AGM direction? That's done as well, trustee Silzer.
Thank you, Chair.
And that's it for your suggestions?
Yes, thank you.
And good ones they were. Thank you. Over to you, trustee Manuel. Now, where were you on the provincial council?
So provincial council happens at Academy. Yeah, so it would need to be moved as well from October to December, as we put it. Yeah.
Is it in October now?
It is in October under regular board agenda meetings.
Yes. Is there any objection, board, to moving that to December? It's done.
Okay, and I do have one more.
Yes.
As we were talking, I really feel, we also elect vice chair in June, which is not under. Did you change that policy?
It's every 6 months.
Every 6 months still, yeah.
No.
We should.
So what is your amendment then?
To move, or to add elect vice chair to the regular June board meeting.
Right, thank you, trustees, is that agreed? Can you hear us, trustee Silzer?
I'm not going to agree to that.
Okay, just a moment, please.
Yes, I can hear you, Chair, but also that this is one of these things that I don't quite understand. Why do we elect a vice chair every 6 months?
I think we've got some questions and some objections, so will you make a motion to make that move, and then we can debate this stuff?
Sure. I'll move that add elect vice chair to the June board meeting agenda items.
All right, is there a seconder for that? If there's no seconder, trustee Manuel is not going to go there. Okay, trustee McMurphy.
But on that point,
Yes.
I agree with trustee Silzer saying, it should be a year. But the other thing is that the way it is now, because they've changed the date of our election, now you've got a 5 and 7 month term. It's not 6 months anymore either. So it's all skewed with. So I don't know if the policy committee needs to look at this or whatever, but we need to get it cleaned up.
Well, we're governed by the policy at this point.
So policy committee.
So policy will look after that, but
I will move that the policy committee be requested to review the current arrangement of the election of the vice chair.
well, we'll have to wait for that because we've got another motion.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no, we have a head motion, trustee McMurphy's motion to adopt the work plan with the words as invited and needed. And then we have a whole slew of amendments that have been agreed. So that's the motion as amended that we're doing at this point. And And we'll deal with that, and then we'll go on to trustee McMurphy's motion about the vice chair. So rest assured, trustee Van Wel will.
I'm glad you got it
We'll
all
look
there.
Okay, is there any more debate? Trustee Silver?
Yes. Thank you. Actually, I'm just looking at our board operations policy, and it doesn't say we have to elect somebody every 6 months. This is what it says. Under paragraph 1.6. The chair shall then forthwith call for nominations for vice chair for the ensuing year or portion thereof, and shall conduct such proceedings in the same manner as enumerated in paragraph 2.4, which is about notices, I think. So I'm not sure that the policy requires that we elect the vice chair every 6 months.
So thank you, that's helping us. Let's,
We did change it.
It's always been that way. It's always been that way.
we were living a lie, trustee McMurphy, every 6 months.
It was a practice, not a policy.
All right, back on track, folks. We can wrap up this issue of the vice chair in a minute, but we're still dealing with the motion to adopt the work plan with the words as invited, deleted, and with all the amendments that were offered by trustees Stelk and Silzer and Van Wel. Is there any more discussion on that? And I'll put the question, all in favor of the motion as amended? Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, let's go to the vice chair issue. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, the policy has always stated for the ensuing year or portion thereof. It was actually an old board operations policy as well. So it's been a practice of the board to appoint the vice chair on a 6-month term, but that practice can simply be changed by either reflecting the election of the vice chair or not in the June work plan.
Steve McMurphy?
Can I move a motion?
Sure.
The vice chair be elected on the same basis as the chair.
Is there a second? Trustee? You just, you don't? That surprises me.
Well, it would really well.
Is there any discussion from trustees other than trustee McMurphy? All right. Trustee Silzer, did you hear the motion?
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm going to put the question now. All in favor? Opposed? And it's carried. So now we'll have an annual vice chair election. So moving then, thank you trustees for that work. Moving then to the orientation program, the suggested motion is this, that the board approach the orientation program for trustees following the board elections. Trustee McMurphy, you move that?
No, I'm not going to move that. Maybe something different, may I?
Yeah, sure. We don't have a motion.
I would move that the following orientation sessions, commence in November following the election, subject to confirmation by the newly elected board. Subject to confirmation by the newly elected board.
Is there a second? Trustee Van Wel, second.
I mean, I think it's right and just and purposeful that we do an outline and say this is what we think the new trustees or the new board needs to know. But I also think we're obviously going to have some new trustees and it will be a new board in any composition in any sense. So I think the new board needs to take a look at it and say, is this what we want? I mean, it's I think useful for us to provide a perspective, but I think they have to determine for themselves what they want to know.
So if this passes, trustee McMurphy, we're sending a message that the final decision rests with the board. Is there a discussion on this motion? Trustee Stout?
Well, I just had a comment about the orientation program. Just the way it's laid out, whether we could include something just saying that student success would be an overarching theme for every session. So it was just because when I read through the list of things, I think it's implied, but I just think it's really important that that's why we're here. We're here so kids can be successful. And the other thing was.
No, let's take that first of all, because I think that's something that probably receives trustee support around the table. Am I right? Does anyone object to including that as an amendment, an overarching theme for each session?
Student success.
About student success. It's agreed. So thank you, trustee Stout. That's done.
Okay, and the other one was just the, on the theme of student success, one of our goals for the strategic plan is Indigenous student success. And I wondered, under number 4, it had local education agreement and to include Indigenous student success. So, I mean, student success generally, but specifically perhaps when you get to number 4, and again, it's implied, but I think it's important to say it and to make it clear.
So Indigenous student success expressly in number 4.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you, trustee Stout. All right, is there any further discussion on the motion moved by trustee McMurphy with these amendments that have been approved? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. The trustees, that completes the agenda. Is there any objection to adjourning at this time? Thank you, folks. Thank you for your work and contribution. And we're adjourned. I wish you the best for the rest of the evening.
Thank you.
Yeah.